Hello, and welcome to Cosmic Dream Sanctuary. This case study is on Shan, the red grid mark, and ET contact. The red grid mark phenomenon is an anomalous skin occurrence that takes the form of a regular pattern of dots or diamonds of markings on the body that mysteriously appear and have often been attributed to a paranormal cause, sometimes associated with ET contact. So Shan is a wise, insightful, and open-minded light worker. She, her husband, and her son have all experienced the red grid mark phenomenon. For those who are not familiar with the term light worker, this is a way to describe someone, especially in their psycho-spiritual practices, of anchoring in the light of consciousness, light, love, peace, all those very positive qualities, anchoring those in, is often associated with the narrative of ascension, meaning that this earth and all of its occupants, including humans, are going through a process of ascending through frequencies, almost like harmonics. And oftentimes people will see this as moving up, like, say, the notes or an octave. So when we talk about the process of ascension, that is literally what we mean. We're raising our vibration, bringing in higher density, higher frequency light. And she really does that and has been supported by the connections that she's explored in these hypnosis sessions. The initial intention for her work was to discover the cause and purpose of the red grid mark phenomenon, and then second, to connect with her higher self. We had two BQH style sessions, so these are 2 to 4 hour sessions of the quantum healing style. So we establish an intention, we go deeply into the experience, and then we ask some questions and things like that. The involved phenomena of these of this case include the red grid mark phenomenon, dreams, missing time, extraterrestrial contact / abduction / telepathy. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Higher self channeling, so that's connecting in with inner sources of wisdom, and past life regression. So the outcomes of this interaction are the exploration of dream and providing insight into the nature of the experiences. It's a deeper connection with a higher self, and it's a sense of grounding, emotional resolution, and a sense of protection. So she's reported that she has not received the red grid mark since working with me. I would offer a few observations. One is that the response of the hypnosis provided something like a dream. So oftentimes, there are 2 times in this interview where she refers to the quality of the answers received. The first time is she says, "I'm not sure this happens. I'm on this medical bed. I'm not sure this happens, but this is what came up for me in the experience." So that's very much in alignment with how I understand hypnosis, especially regression hypnosis, as a dreamlike experience. So she had a definite experience that responded to her intention. She will describe being on a medical bed surrounded by little grays. This is a type of extraterrestrial being, but she says, "I'm not sure if that actually happened or didn't." Later in the interview, she will reference a sense of perhaps it is actually the case, because this is what other people also are reporting when they tune into their dreams or dreamlike experiences and go through processes of hypnosis. So one observation is that she is unsure of both the intention and the cause of the red grid mark phenomenon. We did get into insight. We definitely got insight, and she will describe the insight she received, but the sense of definite cause is not yet present. However, there is feelings of resolution, which she will mention in the interview. And I, as a practitioner, really do feel that the sense of resolution, the sense of peace, the sense of grounding that she's received is the outcome and the best outcome possible. And this relates to the next observation, which is around multiple perspectives. So this is one of the more fascinating aspects of this interview, is that she has a dream. We go into it. She talks about the dream. It's revealed to be associated. There's little grays. She gets guidance from her ET contact, the Arcturian. And so there's definite information. But she says, I recommend anyone go who has this, is curious, work with Daniel or work with a hypnotist. You might get answers. They might be different than mine. I would love to hear that. So that's one of the interesting aspects here, is that we aren't necessarily saying this is the cause of all red grid mark phenomena, just that this hypnosis revealed an experience that seems to be in alignment with common patterns, at least with some percentage of people who work with red grid mark phenomena. And there's a sense of openness, a sense of let's see what's there. And that's really leads to my final observation about this phenomena in general, is that the Facebook group that has over 1,000 members, which I'll talk about in a little bit, they all seem to have very interesting qualities to them. Having received these marks, they go on oftentimes explorations, and they find themselves at a place where there's no answers, but there's a sense of almost openness. There's a sense of almost not necessarily peace, but no one's absolutely freaked out. In fact, I deal with several types of so-called abduction or ET marks, and I would say that the red grid mark phenomena is the least emotionally expressive. There are experiences of, like scars without blood, or 3 triangle dots or something like that. And people who receive those, in my limited experience, seem to be more emotionally disturbed by this. The red grid mark is while there is a sense of draining of energy, while there is this sense of confusion, while there is this sense of did I consent to it or not, it isn't the same level of, oh my gosh, they're coming to get me, they're going to get me sort of feeling that I often feel present with the scar marking or the little red dot marking. So how this works, how case studies work and how regression hypnosis works, is that the hypnosis, the process that I offer, is a co-participatory journey into the unknown for the purposes of healing, insight, and transformation. So sometimes this can be actual knowledge, but it is usually in service with being more present here and now in your life. So the purpose of the case studies here is to share the stories in a meaningful way, to educate you, the viewer, about hypnosis and about these interesting contact phenomenon, and also to inspire you to go on your own journey for healing, insight, and transformation. I need to speak about regression hypnosis to get really clear as to what we're doing and what to expect and how to receive this testimony. So we're not actually or directly dealing with memory or reliving it. That's one of the common misconceptions. Rather, hypnosis is, in my best understanding, is an induction of an intentional dream. So rather than going to a hypnotist to relive a memory, you're actually going to a hypnotist to intentionally induce a dreamlike state of consciousness that can bridge your waking consciousness with the deeper consciousness that's present in dream experiences. So this is really important, and in that way we use the language of regression or memory enhancement simply as a framework, as a tool to create suggestions. We're not actually saying these are memories, and you'll see Shan and I discuss that in this interview. However, like a dream, hypnosis may involve memory or other psychic phenomena, and that's really important to know. Dreams, when you look at the literature, they definitely have a quality of psychicness to them. There are tests in terms of, does the dream telepathy work? And it works, but It's statistically significant effects, but are not reproducible in the way that we would want objective science. And that's totally fine, because this isn't an objective science. This is a subjective experience. This is a co-participatory experience with all the different layers of your consciousness. So like a dream, hypnosis requires participation for interpretation. And you'll see that's what Shan has been doing. I want to show Shan's marks right now. So this is an image of her back. These are the red grid mark dots. You can see it is in a regular grid pattern. You can see that it is flat. It almost looks like a burn of some sort. And there's a lot of information about that. Here is a mark on her son's forehead. Interestingly, that's the third eye location. And then here is a mark on her husband's back, which you can barely see actually, but it is in the top, and you can see that shadow pattern of the gridded dots. Here is the red grid mark phenomenon experiencers and researchers group. This is a screenshot taken from this morning. You can see that there is 1.2 thousand members, including Ralph Blumenthal, who researched into John Mack's life. He's a New York Times reporter. It also has Elena Dannon in it, who is a well-known experiencer, as well as a number of other individuals who are interested in this phenomenon. Again, this is one of the unique qualities of what has been of any group that's associated with extraterrestrial markings, is their sense of openness and sense of exploration and willingness to engage with very alternative experiences. Yeah, this is really unlike the alien abduction support groups or something like that. This is a really qualitatively different group of people. Here's an image of the top feed. This actually is an interesting mark. There were these, I call them Pythagorean decads, but these triangle marks that look like a bowling ball. These were shown on, these appeared on the mirror images on someone's butt cheeks. Actually, it was a rather humorous experience, and this man has a lot of humor about it. And then you'll see these other marks on the right. The media on this group is just sort of these imagery of body parts with marks on them. The Red Grid Mark Facebook group ran a survey. About 130 people responded to it. This is responses related to about related events, and about half of the people say I haven't had any odd phenomena, but then you can see 50 people had odd or vivid dreams. 9 had sleep paralysis. 3 reported ET abduction. 4 reported extra-dimensional travel. 18 reported nightmares. There are 11 that have reported loss of time, and 9 that have reported trance or hypnotic states. So you can see that about half of these people who have responded to the survey have an association with dreams or ET contact experience. This question is regarding the suspected sources of the red grid mark phenomena. Again, there is a sense of uncertain or other. That's about half of the participants. But then we see the rest of these. There's 15 that say unknown medical condition. Then 7 say physical alien contact, non-abduction. Some say, about 6 say physical contact from alien abduction. There are, handfuls of people that say supernatural, interdimensional, or dream-related experience. And so that's really important to know that there is a large experience here. So this is a bar graph. You'll see roughly 50%, the left half, plus that 11.1%, relate to normal causes, like these are unknown medical or unknown or other causes. The rest of these, all these little slices, are different varieties of extraordinary contact experience. So with that, I will simply introduce this interview. I reached out to Shan to speak about her experiences primarily because she connected deeply with guidance around this. She worked through these experiences and she had a positive time having 2 sessions with me. So without further ado, please enjoy this interview with Shan about her experiences. This. Great. So thank you for speaking with me today. You and I had a session, a hypnosis session online regarding the red grid mark phenomena experience, and you had what we would call a regression hypnosis and went back to memories and dreams and experiences to gain insight about that experience. I would love if you could start by introducing yourself and talking a little bit about that phenomenon.
Sure. My name is Shannon. I am part of the group that come from the red grid mark phenomenon and researchers group. And I've been one of the, I guess, experiencers that experienced one of those red grid mark phenomenons back in 2015. I was not the only one in the family that experienced this. My partner as well, and my son too.
So to add some clarity, the red grid mark is kind of a mark that just appears. Sometimes it's associated with dreams, sometimes with sleep, sometimes not with sleep. It shows up sort of like a grid mark pattern, and it's not raised. It sort of looks like it's lasered in or something like that. I'd love if you could speak about like the process of discovery, because one of the things I want to have with this interview is a sense of like emotional journey. Like, so what was it like to, I guess, wake up and see the mark on yourself, on your family? What was that process of discovery like?
I remember that afternoon when I woke up. I actually took a nap that afternoon, and when I woke up, I felt like there was already missing time, like I was away for a little while, longer than I should have. And initially when I woke up, I was drenched in sweat. I was so, like, I just took a shower. And then I remember feeling really drained out, like I needed to take a shower and refresh myself. So I got up, I went to the shower, and I guess my partner saw me pass him, and he was like, "Oh, what's that on your back?" And then he noticed the red grid marks on my back. And when he said that, I had a flashback of a dream I had that particular afternoon, of me sitting in front of, or standing in front of a mirror. And I remember passing the mirror, and then I double take and looked into the mirror, and I lift up my hair here, and there were like tentacle like things coming out of my head, and it was very vivid, raw, and gross, and it was just disgusting. And when he said he noticed the marks, that particular part of my dream I forgot until he told me about the markings, and I had a flashback of that particular part of my dream. And I remember like saying, "Oh, gross," and he was like, "What?" And then I told him and explained to him what I just saw, and then I took a shower, came out, and then we were just kind of explaining, "Oh, what could these markings come from? Maybe I slept on something," or your initial thoughts of like how you would have gotten, or how you would have gotten those markings. And we kind of checked off everything off the list. And by the time we were like, okay, oh, maybe it's like, we're kind of jokingly, oh, maybe it's aliens, maybe we got abducted, and we are kind of just joking around about it. And they were like, okay, well, I was curious. I went to go look it up. At the time, I think this was around 2015. And when I looked on the internet, there were probably only about 3 to 4 photos of the red grid markings, but there were people that had the same experience. When they posted those pictures, they said the same thing. They woke up, felt drained, took a shower, noticed the markings, went to the doctors. The doctors couldn't tell them anything. They just thought, oh, maybe it's like a rash, or or allergic reaction to something. But yeah, ever since then, I was always curious. Like, I wanted to dig more into the topic. And then years later, I find this page on Facebook talking about the red grid markings. And it's astonishing. It's crazy how much people are experiencing the same thing, but no clear explanation to why or what it is.
That's right. Yeah. And I know one of them is a doctor of plastic surgery and is like Harvard educated in medicine and has experienced the grid marking and does not have a conventional explanation. So that's a really strong confirmation. She actually believes it's a paranormal source. That's actually meaningful to share here, that we're like, people do go to the doctors. There's no explanation. There's a strong regularity to it. So just a clarifying question about your family and stuff. And did they have the marking at the same time or a different time? And also, was it recurrent? Did it happen more than once?
For me, it happened twice, but the second time I got it was in 2019, and I only had like a single marking on my stomach, in front of my stomach area, and that
Yep.
was it. I never had any other occurrences, unless I just didn't notice that I did.
Yep.
But those are the two occurrences I had. My son, I believe he had his markings in 2018. He had it right on his forehead.
Yep.
He woke up with it on, and I think he did have strange dreams that week too. That's another same occurrence with me, my partner, and my son. They all had like either very vivid or strange like dreams. And then my partner, he got his markings. I remember this week because my best friend got married that week, and I was away from him, so he was kind of alone that week, sleeping.
Mm.
And I remember him telling me he had like a bunch of nightmares or night terrors that week. And when the day he came to her wedding, afterwards we went to the beach and he took his shirt off, and that's when I noticed the markings on his back.
Yep. Wow. Wow. Thank you. So I mean, like, what is that like, even seeing your child have these markings without an explanation? Is that as gut wrenching as I imagine it is, or was it like,
It
oh, it's
is.
okay?
It was very odd. I guess to him it wasn't like, it wasn't alarming. He just was he from his perspective, it didn't seem like it was wasn't a big deal.
Yep.
But because we, as parents, we kind of look into more into what might could be, or what it could be. It's Yeah, it is a little gut wrenching not to know, like, not being able to not know what's causing this and why. Like, that's just those two main questions. I always hope that one day we'll be able to figure out what's going on.
Yep. Me too. Me too. So you connected with a group, and I think that felt validating, or something, right? There's thousands of people having these experiences. And then you got connected with me with hypnosis. So I'd love if you could talk a little bit about that process of considering hypnosis. Like, why did you consider hypnosis? And what was your initial intention with working with me?
So I wanted to I noticed you were going through the red grid mark phenomenon group, and I was very curious to see what would come up if I did go into a hypnosis session, what kind of answers I would come across. If I could, if it did come up, what was, those two main questions, what were causing them and why. Like, that was my main concern, just to see like what kind of answers would come up
Yep.
through the session with you.
Yeah. And what was your experience like? How was that for you?
It was it was it was amazing.
Thanks.
It's kind of hard to explain. Like when you go through a hypnosis session, it's almost like you're kind of like in that sleeping awake state, like right in between that. So you're able to still be conscious to speak and talk about like the information that's coming through, but you're also lucid enough to experience like what you're going through when you're going through the session, and you're you know, you're explaining to people to let your higher self guide you through the session, which helps tremendously, because I think when you let your higher self guide you, you let your true ultimate self like be there presently.
Yes.
And that makes you not too afraid or having those like anxious feeling of not knowing what it is, but having your higher self there to guide you, like it definitely kind of mellows that feeling out and lets you be more open to what you receive.
Thank you. Yeah, I know oftentimes people are nervous about hypnosis, and that's actually totally normal and fine. It's fine to be a little scared of hypnosis. I'd like to clarify some misconceptions, like I'm not putting you in my control, or you're not like going out and under and saying these things that are like completely, I don't know, from the deep dark parts of yourself or something like, and you talked to the sense of being connected with your higher self, and that really guides you in the situation. You talked about being lucid in the experience. Is there any advice you might give to someone who does have that sense of nervousness or even anxiety about approaching hypnosis in service to finding answers?
I think it's like you said, I think it's a normal occurrence for people to feel that way, to initially feel that way, because I think one, they just aren't there. For one, they're not aware of what, you know, of they're kind of just anxious of the unknown and not sure of um how they're gonna take it or how they're gonna perceive it. But like I said earlier, for the way you explain it and how you kind of guide people to connect to their higher self, it brings down that feeling of anxiousness and fear and all of those feelings that you have like prior to the session, and makes you feel more relaxed and connected to yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you. And now I'd love if you could talk a little bit about the dream experience. So what I remember of this session was we talked about the dream, and then somehow we transitioned to this space that seemed very technological, that had transparent walls. And then you got an understanding as to what that tentacle experience might be. Yeah. So could you just walk through that process of going from the dream to a deeper or understanding? Yeah.
Sure. um I just remember the time when we were getting to the part where you were trying to explain um going into that state of like feeling drained and everything. Like it kind of put me in that situation where I might have felt like I was in, because I want to say I'm not sure that I was in there, but that's what came up in my thoughts, was me laying down. You know, once you explain the situation that I was in, I ended up on a metal slab, like naked, and I remember seeing like three different small grays around me, kind of just observing. And I remember we got more into the session and I ended up seeing the ship, even taller grays in my the taller grays were like driving the ship. And oh, I'm sorry, even prior to being on the ship, I remember seeing the blue light, like this blue light um
Mm.
coming out of the window. um and I think maybe that was just the light that was pulling me into wherever that atmosphere was at. And from the blue light, I ended up seeing myself on that table and on that ship. And then I'm trying to communicate with the grays in there, but they won't. Um, they just don't won't communicate with me. And I guess at that point, um, my other guide, or my guide, came in, and that's the Octurian, came in and started communicating with me telepathically. And then we went from there to jumping different places all over the place, from seeing the mothership that I was on when I initially saw her on there, and then going to her planet, seeing where they're from, and then jumping to like back in the past where Lumeria and Atlantis was and everything. It's so much, it's like overwhelming because there's so much information that's being passed on through that short session. It's mind-boggling, but it was amazing. Such an amazing experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I often think of these as something like an intentional dream experience. So, and one thing I like to ask people about is their understanding of the experience itself, right? So sometimes we have the understanding that we might be reliving memories, but in your case, right, you went through a dream experience through what seems like a memory of the blue light to what seems like a memory of being in this space. But then all of a sudden you're interacting with the grays and you're interacting with an Arcturian, which to me, it says it's no longer a memory, but something else. So do you have any thoughts as to what that might be?
I want to say it could be the experience that I went through when I did get those red grid markings, because I remember even after our session, I did a little digging myself to see if anyone had similar experiences as me. And I've seen people in the same red grid marking phenomenon page talk about them coming across small grays in their session. Same thing, they ended up on a metal slab table, talked about how they felt around those entities. They are very analytical, almost AI, like robotic sort of, or humanoids. And not too much in detail about it, but it's just those little small details that they do talk about, very relative to what I went through.
Yeah, I will add my testimony there. And I ask everyone, did you have a dream? What was that dream like? And oftentimes they are somewhat confused dreams, and most people don't know what they are, but there are sort of central themes, like there's a sense of clear walls, actually being on a ship, but having clear walls. Also like tubes, like that tentacle experience you talked about. And then some sort of exotic or extraordinary, generally extraterrestrial beings are associated. And some people don't understand this in their dreams, right? There's stand-ins and things like that. They might be like, I'm on a bus that's floating above a city and the walls are clear. And it's very similar to the feeling that you communicated. So your dream actually, in your experience, is very clear, at least in terms of being able to place it within the narrative of like gray ET contact sort of thing. So I love that you connected with the Arcturian. I love that you connected with the guide. And do you have any other reflections you'd like to talk about with those connections?
I remember the second session we had and we reconnected with her. That was the time when I think you asked if I had any previous connections with her prior to this lifetime. And she did. She explained to me that we were connected all the way through Lumeria, Atlantis times, when it was still here existing. She said she's been a guide for sorry, I'm trying to think of the word. She's been a guide for our human race for a very, very long time. I can't explain how long, but she's been around since almost the beginning, when the universe was created. And till now, she's still trying to guide our human race to elevate our consciousness, to hold and anchor the light here, because that's what's most important at this time, I think. She made that very clear, to anchor the light and to, just keep trying to collectively excel and ascend our consciousness higher, to hold on to that, because I think also she was explaining Earth is also going through the same thing, and we're all in this together.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. She provided some insight at the end of the first session. I remember asking the Grays like to talk, and they were really not communicative. And I was so grateful her presence came in to provide insight. What insight did she provide you regarding perhaps the cause and purpose of the grid marking?
I know she was explaining that they weren't here to help us, that, you know, they were doing the opposite. I guess, like, you know how you explained the women that went through the government experience, how she needed not access, but she needed
to say no.
yeah,
No, I do not consent to
right.
this abduction
She needed to say
experience.
no to the
Yeah.
consent. So there are entities that are out there that don't have the right intent for humanity. And I think, for my experience through the red grid markings, they were the opposite of what I should have had experience. I mean, versus like experiencing what I went through with the Octurian was the total opposite of what I felt when I was with the Greys.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember sort of talking to them through you or asking about the consent. Did you consent to the experience? Did you consent to the Arcturian presence in your life? Did you consent to these red grid marks? What do you remember of that conversation?
I remember telling you no at first, because maybe I was confused about the question. But now that I look back at it, I think that at the time when they were doing these things, I probably did not consent to that. And that was because maybe they were part of the government experience, where they did things with our human race without our consent, without unknowingly knowing that they're doing these things to us. But once I know that we are allowed to say no, that our astral bodies are allowed to go through this consent, saying that we don't consent to these things. Now that I know that, I think at the time I just wasn't aware that these things were happening to me, and that they were doing these things without our consent.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you observed any shift of patterns? Like, is there recurrent like contact dreams or experiences or markings that have shifted based on that new understanding, or has it not been active, or where does that stand with you?
I think since the session, I haven't had any like really occurrences, because I think for people, even for people that are on the red grid markings page, they do ask to communicate more with the red grid markings, and they do get occurrences. But for me personally, I don't ever since the session, I never tried to get myself in that position to experience it again, because I'm just not sure what they're doing and why they're doing it. So I wouldn't want to consent to something I'm not aware of, or what their intentions are.
Yep. Yeah. In the experience, you mentioned something around frequency. So in terms of the explanation a little bit, I'm not sure if you remember that there is an experience, we call it like hypnotic amnesia, something like that. So you go in trance, sometimes you remember things. I don't remember a lot of the sessions I participate in. So do you have any memory of like explanation of the phenomena in terms of like frequency or embedding of frequency? Does that ring any bells?
Embedding a frequency. I remember part of the session you asked me if I did hear some type of frequency that was coming through, and I did. I started hearing like this wow wow sound and this vibration, but I just didn't know like what it was doing or why I was hearing it. But
Yep.
I did hear some type of frequency coming through.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And then just a kind of wrap up question around how are you now? What are your reflections around having participated in hypnosis for these things? Where do you stand? So you've painted the picture of your emotional state relating to the red grid mark, receiving it, and then after the hypnosis, how are you now? It's totally fine if you say like, I'm not expecting everything to be wrapped up in a bow, sort of happily ever after. I'm actually just looking for where you actually are with those things. So yeah.
I think after the session, I felt a little more grounded because you did like help me kind of connect to my higher self, and having that sense of like connection through my higher self, I felt like I was more protected
Yeah.
through my not only physical but my astral body as well. And ever since then, I just never had any occurrences or anything that was similar to the red grid marking since then.
Great. It's really good to hear. Thank you. Are there any like final thoughts or reflections you'd like to share now?
Oh yes.
Great.
I would advise whoever had experienced this, come to try and see if you're open to doing a session with Daniel, because this is a very it's a very extraordinary experience to go through, especially if you want to look for answers. You know, you might come up with a different answer than what I'm going through, and we can all kind of collect that data together and see what we come with, or what we can, you know, tear down and see what's the root of this, what's the root and cause of all of this. But
Great.
yes, yeah, I definitely refer Daniel to, you know, come and experience this session, this hypnosis, because it's extraordinary to experience.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for your time today talking about your experiences. And so I'll now stop the recording and we can just debrief and say thank you. So.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the interview. I now want to speak about how you can work with me if you've had similar experiences with the red grid mark and want to explore. I invite you to work with me, or if you've had any number of the other sort of marking phenomenon, that's a fascination of mine as well. I offer one-on-one sessions by a sliding scale donation, meaning if a cash is an issue, you can talk to me. I actually just send a donation link after the session and you fill in what you want to donate. I offer work in the modalities of depth hypnosis and beyond quantum healing, meditation instruction, spiritual counseling, and dream work. And the reason why I offer sessions with all these different modalities is so I can support the wide variety of extraordinary phenomena that happen. As you can see with Shan, she really shifted into past life, into connection with higher self, into embodiment practices. And so these really move from the typical domain of regression hypnosis to an expansion of consciousness. And that's really where I would see us all going together, is to expand our capacity to be present and with these extraordinary experiences with ourselves so that we can embody greater peace, love, and unity consciousness. The sessions can all be glommed together. All these different modalities can work together, or we can parse them out. So if you're interested in just the dream work or hypnosis, we can do that. We discuss all these things in a free and no obligation consultation. So that's the start of the process, which I'll just briefly describe here. We'll have a consultation where you can tell your story to me. I listen in a non-judgmental way, and then we have a discussion about how my services can serve you. I answer any questions you might have, and we can establish a plan for the session, scheduling a session, choosing which modalities to work with. And then oftentimes I invite you to intend to have a dream or experience a message from yourself between the time of the consultation and the session work. And this really provides a gateway oftentimes into the session work. In this session, we'll establish an intention. We practice hypnosis before actually going into the regression or into the work of the session, so that you feel very comfortable and safe. As you noticed with Shann's interview, there was a quality of, she was present through it. She had this sense of lucidness. And I really want you to have that experience so that you feel really confident that you're in control of this situation, that you're safe, so that you can go so much more deeper into the experience. In that way, we also connect with inner guidance. We always connect with inner guidance. That's one of the reasons why Shan said she felt so safe in this experience, is because she was initially connected with the higher self and that source of guidance, and that we really do listen to that. Then we have the hypnotic experience for the intention of this session. We'll do a debrief as well, where we talk about it, where we go through the activity of interpreting what the session was like in a dream, how we might interpret that like a dream. And again, there's an invitation for additional sessions. The depth hypnosis modality usually is a series of 3 sessions. The Beyond Quantum Healing is usually a single session, but is repeated as desired. There's an integration period after you have these experiences. You have to do work. You have to invite the deeper wisdom and frequencies and communications into your waking life. And you can do that through journaling or listening to the tapes or just grounding activities. However you live your best life, that's how you do this. And then we'll have a follow-up, just like I had with Shan, as, hey, how's it going? Do you have any questions? You might reach out to me, I might reach out to you. But there is a follow-up, so you're not left high and dry. I always invite people to connect with me. I do want to talk about some group session offerings I have. On Wednesdays, I offer a study and practice group session. We deep dive into a hypnosis or dream topic. I lecture on the theory and history, and then we have an experience together. These are live broadcasts to YouTube and to Facebook, as well to Zoom. But afterward, after the broadcast, there is a small group discussion if you want to connect with others or share your experience. On Sunday morning, there is a fellowship service, which is sort of based around the notion of church, where we have music and readings and contemplations and a message based on the weekly theme. So for more information, you can go to cosmicdreamsanctuary.org/groups. Finally, I'd love to list out the ways you can stay in touch with me. You can go to the website at cosmicdreamsanctuary.org and get a lot of information and ways to connect. I have a Facebook page, the Cosmic Dream Sanctuary Facebook page. The YouTube channel has a tremendous amount of videos and information. There's self-hypnosis tapes. There's recordings of the live study and practice groups. There's so much more. So just search for Cosmic Dream Sanctuary on YouTube. I have an email newsletter, so if you were interested in the groups and wanted to get notifications in your email box, just sign up at the bottom of cosmicdreamsanctuary.org. And finally, you could simply just email me at daniel@cosmicdreamsanctuary.org. So once again, thank you for being here, and I really do appreciate all of my work with clients. Thank you, Shan, for sharing your story, and may this recording be of benefit to you. Thank you.